Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Today is Friday, March the 6th. This is episode 5 of Album a Day Online. My name is Daryl. I'll be your critic today. Today we're dealing with the latest and certainly one of my favorite in a long time from Robert Plant, Lullaby and the Ceaseless Roar. This is his 10th studio record, solo studio record, I should say. Um, the 10th album, just with his name specifically on the record. If we don't include the album he made with Alison Krauss, and we don't include the two records he and Jimmy Page put together in the mid-90s, billing just Robert Plant, Lullaby and the Ceaseless Roar is his 10th album. Now, you're born in 1948. You are the lead singer of one of the most influential rock and roll bands of all time. You are a golden god. What do? You don't stop. You keep making music that is interesting to you, and you don't live in anyone else's expectations. That is one of Robert Plant's greatest strengths, and it has, in a roundabout way, also been one of his greatest annoyances to a lot of his fans. I bought this album for a friend of mine for his birthday shortly after it was released, saying it's pretty good. He stated that he was not, hi Bob, that he was not so chuffed with it, saying that he was hoping for more of the Led Zeppelin wail. And I think that has been um, the biggest um, nitpick that a lot of classic Robert Plant fans have made of him for the entirety of his solo career, with the exception maybe of Now and Zen from 1988 and 1990's Manic Nirvana. He has done a very good job of making music that was new and not necessarily a throwback to his time with Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones and late drummer John Bonham. I am, if you recall, my very first recording a few days ago was the 40th anniversary issue of Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin, so I am very biased. I am a huge fan of Led Zeppelin, and I am a fan of Robert Plant, and I have been um, actually technically since before I became a fan of Led Zeppelin. Rock radio was kind of weird, and new Robert Plant for a while there in the late 80s took precedence over quote-unquote old Led Zeppelin. So actually, I owned Manic Nirvana by Robert Plant before I actually owned a Led Zeppelin record. Times they are strange. Um, Lullaby and the Ceaseless Roar is different than his last album, The Band of Joy, um, because there are more than one song. There is more than one song on Lullaby that was written by Robert Plant. The last record was essentially a covers record, and it was really good, but it was very, very different and still continued very much along the vein of what he put out in 2007 with Alison Krauss with the Raising Sand record, which, for my money, is actually the best Robert Plant solo record, quote unquote. Um, this album contains only one cover, and it's a traditional called Little Maggie, and it's the opener track for the album. And as you might expect for this phase of Robert Plant's career, it does carry forward a lot of his Appalachian blues, a lot of his bluegrass, a lot of his old school rock and roll type of sounds, but it incorporates a lot of the Eastern influences that you hear on tracks, say, like Kashmir, and that you get in other songs throughout his solo career. Robert is very much in that stage of his career where he's not interested, like I've said already, in just making another rock and roll record. He is making stuff that is interesting to him, and in which case his record collection must include a lot of Eastern influences as well as the old bluegrass and Appalachian blues and Appalachian folk records. So, if you're a Robert Plant fan and you didn't realize that Lullaby and the Ceaseless Roar had come out in September of last year, um, get out there and get it. It's really good. You won't be disappointed. And if you're a Robert Plant fan and like that buddy of mine who really just wants the rock and roll Led Zeppelin wail, and there's nothing wrong with that because let's face it, you're always going to be living in the shadow of the band that was the biggest thing ever. And that is unfortunately what Robert Plant always has to deal with. Is there ever going to be a Led Zeppelin reformation? I don't think so. I think not in a strictest sense of the word. They did the 2007 reformation as a benefit concert, and that was enough for Robert. And I can't fault him for it. If he keeps putting out music like this, I don't think he needs to rest on the laurels of Led Zeppelin. For Album a Day Online, I've been your critic. My name is Daryl Bianco.